Welcome to This Week in Guns, a podcast that covers the commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. Brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. I'm your host, Jake Challen from Gun Guy Radio, and you make this program possible. That's right, you. Simply click through our Amazon affiliate link the next time you're shopping online, and a small portion of your sale goes back to supporting pro-gun shows like This Week in Guns. Well, we have a great set of panelists tonight. We have a couple new guys on the show. We have Nathan Murr from Breach Bang Clear. Hey, Nathan.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. And this is actually your second time, right?
Yes, I think you had me on.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably about 6 months ago. It's been a little while.
Yeah, very cool. I like your new backdrop. I'm glad you upgraded your studio there.
I think the last time I was on, I was actually at my buddy's house in middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and it was pretty sad. I know it was. So this is here at home, so it should be a little bit better.
I think that was the one my wife was like, "Is he in a trailer?"
I mean, I don't like to judge my friends, you know. So okay.
And we have
and a porch and everything.
Porch and everything. You should see my wife's grandfather's double wide. It's like been added on to like a condominium or something. It's ridiculous. So, Adam Kraut, first timer here. Adam Kraut, Esquire, nonetheless. Is that for real? The Esquire?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Hashtag.
I am a licensed attorney in the state of Pennsylvania. And I believe I know where my good friend Nate Murr is going with this. I believe he means to say hashtag Pelican Brief.
When Adam was getting ready to pass the bar and he was getting kind of jittery about whether or not he was going to pass it, I was kind of riding pretty hard, telling him that I know he's going to pass the bar and that he should watch The Pelican Brief and The Firm and a series of other movies to get ready for the bar. And he did, and oddly enough, he passed. So I'm very proud that Adam's my lawyer now.
Well, very cool.
Not by choice.
Now we're not all just plain lawyers. We have a real one. So.
Well, I'm not giving legal advice.
And we have Natalie Foster, Girls Guide to Guns. Hey, Natalie.
Hey, Jake. How are you?
Doing great. And last but not least, John Chaos with the I'm with Chaos YouTube channel. Hey, John.
Whitey's not here, so hi, Jake. How you doing, buddy?
That was terrible.
I was going to say, because now that we've mentioned Whitey and you just insulted Nate's prior background, I think we need to take a look at Whitey's background every time he comes on. I'm just saying. Anybody else ever notice? Like, the fact that he has two children and like 4 pets is abundantly clear. Love you, Whitey. You know I do. In fact, I love Whitey so much that I watched a Netflix documentary this weekend called Whitey. Not joking, because I missed him. A lot of love.
I assume it had nothing to do with Four Guys.
Story. It's more legit. No, it didn't. It had to do with this mob boss named Jim Whitey Bulger, who the FBI discovered living 16 years on the lam 5 blocks from my apartment. So you know.
So Whitey's a mob boss?
I decided to check it out.
He could totally be a mob boss if he wanted to be. He could pull it off.
Totally. Yeah. It's the ADD, man.
All right. Well, I apologize this week. It seems like we're having some connection issues. So, Natalie and Nathan, if you can maybe kill your video feed.
Killing.
Help a little
I
bit.
I just killed it like a mob boss.
See, you do it without saying it. It's like going to the bathroom. You don't say out loud, "I'm going to the bathroom," except me before the show starts. But no. Let's get into the top stories of this week. Researcher reaffirms that at least 760,000 defensive gun uses happen every year. So this is over on Breitbart.com. It has to do with a Florida State criminology professor, Gary Click, who once again responded to recent criticism about how maybe his numbers are not accurate, because how could there possibly be that many defensive gun uses every year? And part of it, I guess, he arrives at that number because many defensive gun uses probably go unreported due to people, I don't know, multiple reasons. But John, what do you think? Do you think a lot of defensive gun uses may go under or unreported?
Yeah, honestly, I think it really depends on what you classify as a defensive gun use. I mean, it could be as simple as, you know, somebody unholstering their gun. To me, that's a defensive gun use. You know, they're going to defend their life. They unholster that gun, whether they, you know, pull the trigger or not. It's still, you know, to me, that's a defensive maneuver. And how many times does it go where somebody is getting ready to, let's say they shoot somebody, and some dude runs away and never says anything to the cops, and that never goes reported. You know what I mean? Like, where do these statistics come from? I don't know. I mean, that's a really, really high number, and it's kind of surprising to me even. What do you think, Adam?
What do I think? I think it's not a surprising statistic. I mean, you got to look at how many gun owners are in the United States of America, and out of those gun owners, how many of them have licenses to carry or live in states where, you know, you're not required to have a license. I believe that those figures are probably pretty underreported, especially if there is no actual action taken other than unholstering the gun. You know, I'm of the mindset, and I know a lot of other individuals are as well, don't pull a gun out unless you're prepared to use it. But that being said, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to employ force. So I think that's where some of those statistics come from. It's just the fact that not all these defensive purposes end up in, you know, an actual shooting.
Right.
Well, and later on in this article, Kleck goes to talk about how in the early 90s that there was a very high rate of defensive gun uses not reported, because if people were to report it, at the same time they would be also admitting a degree of criminal behavior, because they were not allowed to carry that firearm for protection in whatever jurisdiction that was.
I see. Nate, what do you think, buddy? Are these figures accurate?
Well, I think we all know that 75% of statistics are made up. So, or what is it? 100% of statistics are made up 25% of the time, or whatever it might be. I don't think numbers really matter so much, right? I guarantee that every day in America, there's somebody pulls a gun, or I'm not saying brandishing a gun, because brandishing is a negative word, right? But a lot of crimes are avoided just by a gun being present. So a group of guys start walking across the parking lot with knives and bats in their hands. You draw your pistol. You don't even necessarily have to point at them, and then all of a sudden they find out, hey, we got better things to do today than keep walking in a menacing way towards that gentleman. So that guy may or may not call the police and file, you know, a report and saying that 3 guys dressed in this description, you know, approached me. He might feel like he's in the wrong for drawing his pistol, even though he didn't point that pistol at those gentlemen with the crowbar and the baseball bat and the knife. You know, he might not want to carve the time out of his day just to have nothing come out of it. You know, so as far as that goes, like, you know, I guarantee that happens on a daily basis. I personally have almost been a victim of that exact situation, and both times I drew my weapon. I was ready to fire my weapon, but I didn't need to. As soon as the gun was present, those gentlemen found that they had something better to do right then and there.
Natalie, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I would just like more definition on what it actually, you know, what he means by in defense or defensive situations, because you know, I mean, I'm thinking too, we're all going through different scenarios that we've encountered, you know, and we've all heard from friends and that kind of thing what they've encountered in the past. And I mean, I remember, you know, there was a shooting spree a couple of miles from my house, and then about a month later, I heard what I believed to be gunshots. And I took my gun out to make sure that everybody was okay, but it was in my house. It was. I don't know. Does that count? It's just. To me, it seems like a really high number. But then again, you factor in all the things that the guys, like Adam said. Considering how many people own firearms. I don't know. I just like a little more definition there, but look, what it proves nonetheless is that firearms are deterring crime, and I think that's just a good thing all over, all around.
So it's been confirmed that the NRA and lawmakers will fight ATF's M855 rifle ammunition ban. We talked about this last week a little bit, how the ATF is looking to ban all 5.56 NATO caliber 62 grain lead core bullets with mild steel inserts, and so now the NRA has come out, NRA ILA, which is the legislation action side of the NRA, so that they're going to work with Congress to craft a piece of legislation to block ATF's attempt. Now, I don't know, if the ATF moves forward with this, my question is, can they move fast enough to block something like this?
Right. What do you mean by can they move fast enough? Explain that statement.
Well, even if they could get, something crafted in Congress, I mean...
Oh, you mean can the NRA move fast enough to stop it?
I think he's asking if Congress can move fast enough.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, really both. I mean, they're both kind of bureaucratic in ways, but definitely Congress. You got to get, the Senate, the House, and everything to agree on it, and then, I mean, is this something that would have to go across the president's desk then?
That's a good question. I think we need a lawyer.
Well, it is a good question. There's a number of different issues that arise out of it. Congress can do anything it wants, so you got to keep in mind ATF is a regulatory agency. Whatever regulations they come up with, Congress can just overrule them by creating a new law. In response to your question about whether it has to go to the president's desk, that's going to depend on the number of votes that are available in Congress. I don't believe the Republicans, last I checked, had a supermajority, so I don't think they'll be able to push anything through. And as we've seen with this administration for the past 2 terms, they haven't been friendly to firearms in the slightest. You have a Justice Department that's responsible for running guns to Mexico. There's been numerous different avenues of attack on the Second Amendment. So I don't see where Congress is going to be able to step in, given its current makeup and with the type of administration in the executive office, to pass any legislation.
I'd be really interested to see what kind of legislation they would try to pass. Do you think it would be something where they go, no bans on any current ammunition or something to that effect, and then I'd be curious to see what they would try to push through. What angle do they take? Nate, what do you think, buddy?
My question is M855 green tip ammunition, which became standard issue ammunition back in the 1980s, replacing the 55 grain full metal jacket round. The whole purpose of that round was to defeat Soviet body armor of that era. Okay, so in the 1980s, the kind of armor that the Soviet army and satellite countries were wearing was all soft armor. So for me, this is very confusing because I don't think it's an issue of like police officer safety. Virtually any high-velocity pointed projectile will defeat soft armor, like traditionally worn every day by law enforcement. But at the same time, the majority of hard armor plates, like worn by the military and worn by SWAT teams, that plate will defeat M855 green tip. So in the military, we don't consider green tip an armor-piercing round. We actually have a separate round for that, and it's a black-tipped round. It's extremely expensive and extremely rare to be issued, and it's one of those things where it's kind of a weird thing to be popping up right now. What makes me wonder is that you go down to South America, there's a lot of South American countries that have laws stating that civilians cannot own firearms chambered in the same cartridge as the guns carried by their military. And to me, it's like one of those things where it's like, all right, well, this is the same ammunition used by our military. It seems like a step towards that. Like we don't want to allow citizens to have the same ammunition that's used by our service. I don't understand why it's even popping up now, considering we have over 30 years of that round being produced and being sold in America.
Yeah, you had to bring up the black tips. Now they know about those.
Well, those are impossible to find. Those are legitimately when they banned armor-piercing 7.62 projectiles. I believe that was back in the 90s. The black tip 5.56 fell in that category as well. I think that's also around the same time when steel core AK-47 ammunition, basically anything with a steel or tungsten core that was labeled as armor-piercing and designed to be armor-piercing. That's when I think I got caught up into that. But M855 green tip is not technically an armor-piercing round. It's a penetrating round, but there's actually other 5.56 rounds superior in penetration to green tip, but they're not marketed or sold as armor piercing.
Right.
I mean, it's all relative. Like if you have a single layer of Kevlar, is Kevlar armor? Yes. Will a 22 long rifle go through a single layer of Kevlar? Yes. Does that make 22 long rifle armor piercing? It depends on what the armor is. So, like I said, the round was designed to give more penetration over the 55 grain round that we used since Vietnam. It wasn't designed to be armor piercing. It was just designed to penetrate further through different types of media, like heavy jungle brush or car doors or the soft armor that the Russian soldiers were wearing that's obsolete now. It doesn't even matter.
You guys, the one thing you need to keep in mind when everybody talks about armor piercing is in what context. You have the layman's term, armor piercing, which is everybody's common understanding of armor piercing, and then you have the legal definition, which Congress spelled out in the Gun Control Act of 1968. It wasn't. I'm sorry. It's located in that section of the code, but it was actually from the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act, 1985, I believe. Sorry, my memory's a little foggy today. And that spells out, I believe, 8 different core materials that make it an armor-piercing round. There's a statutory definition of X. If it meets X or Y, then it's armor-piercing. If not, then it's not armor-piercing. The other thing that the statute allows for is the director or the attorney general through ATF, now since that authority is delegated, to make an exception if it's primarily intended for sporting purposes, which that's how M855 or SS109 was actually not classified as armor piercing. And as a number of different posters and articles, and even my argument in my blog article I wrote on this when this first happened was that by definition it's not an armor piercing round.
Right.
The other thing is who created the criteria for what is armor piercing and what is not armor piercing? I mean, like you watch politicians hold up rifles when they're going on their anti-gun, rampage about how these guns have no sporting purpose, and they can barely handle the weapon safely, let alone you're going to tell me that they know enough about ballistics to be able to definitively say one thing can be labeled armor piercing and one thing cannot? Like,
that was one of the things that I had issue with when I was trying to figure out what was going on with this. I actually spoke with Adam for a little bit, and I asked for kind of an explanation because he's a little bit more educated on it. I said, dude, who decided that this was armor piercing? If these rounds are not actually armor piercing, where did this come from? And I'm not positive on that. I'm not sure Adam ever dug too much into it, but it's extremely frustrating when you know something is not armor piercing, but it's being referred to as an armor piercing round.
Well, as I alluded to during our conversation, just real quick, and then I'm gonna let this one go. I did look at the legislative history of it, and the only context I found 223 or 556 mentioned was in 2 different instances. I believe both were in a Senate debate. Don't quote me on that, but the one context was that a 55 grain hollow point or hollow tip, whatever they refer to it as, would penetrate a 1/4 inch steel plate, and the only other mention of that round was in the context of the civilian marksmanship program and obtaining ammunition from the military. So one of the things that I thought might be going on is that they didn't necessarily examine it under the statutory definition as much as it came from the military. It might be armor piercing, because the idea of armor piercing, if you read through the just the legislative records on it, it seems that a lot of the politicians anyway had a vague idea of what armor piercing was and weren't necessarily going towards what the proposed bill had in mind.
I mean, you hear armor piercing, and it just sounds scary to the layman, to somebody that doesn't know anything about firearms. Like, armor piercing, nobody needs that. Why do people have that? That's unnecessary. My thing is, like, if you look at, they have a better understanding how many M16s are out there. Over 11 million M16s, the fully automatic military rifle, was produced. There's no accurate number for how many AR-15s have been produced, or if you want to lump in all semi-automatic 5.56 caliber weapons, it's millions and millions and millions in comparison to how many M16s were produced, right? But the thing is that's important about this, and I think people are like, why are you attacking this round? There's a lot of ramifications. It's not just that, oh, I can't get, federal M855 style ammunition or Winchester or anybody else's. You look at how much SS-109 type ammunition, how many M855 types of ammunition are imported. Like Privy Partisan, there's a lot of surplus from other nations like English Radway Green and German ammunition. That ammunition comes into our country and is shot sporting. It's shot in 3-gun matches, it's shot on the range, it's shot for fun, plinking. And if M855 was to be banned and go away, it's not just about the American M855. There'd be a huge void in the market, and it would inevitably hurt availability of 5.56 across the board, because now we're all competing.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, question for you guys. Do you think that the market would just adapt and, just use some sort of, I don't know, a less powerful or maybe even more powerful round, adjust something about the round, and they would just call it something different to, find the loophole?
The thing is, there's already companies that make, what the M855 is, it was designed by FN as the SS-109 and became a NATO standard projectile. So hypothetically, an American Marine or soldier could share ammunition with a British soldier or a German soldier if we were ever fight a war in conjunction. And that's actually happened overseas in countries like Afghanistan, where guys were sharing ammunition. It was all ballistically matched. But at the same time, there are other bullets that are ballistically matched to M855, some of which are superior to M855 as far as penetration goes. Like, realistically, a 300 Win mag with a solid projectile will penetrate more steel than a SS-109 style 62 grain green tip. So it seems like such an arbitrary thing. That's what I'm saying. It seems like such a nonsensical law to be presented this late in the game when there's no data to back up that it's dangerous or it has anything to do with officer safety.
Right. I think kind of in the line of what Natalie was talking about, I think that ultimately, if there's this massive ban, and it affects worldwide supply of this ammunition, it's going to affect the supply chain as a whole, because then these manufacturers are going to go, well, the previous demand that we had is gone, and I don't know that they're going to be able to fill it in quick fashion. They may find something, later on, like they may ramp up XM193 production or something like that, but I don't know. We're beating the crap out of this topic.
I actually think it's really pretty fascinating, but I don't know. Yeah, we can move on if we need to.
Well, I liked your thoughts, Natalie, about us just tweaking the formula or something to make it, because if you think
I just feel like we always have some sort of we're adaptable as an industry.
Right.
The one thing about it, I mean, to Chaos's point, like, if we did adapt, it wouldn't be standardized like it is now, so it would take a little while, and it would probably throw the industry off a little bit for, probably a year or two, if that. But, but it does beg the question, why now? I mean, like, as to Nate's point, why now? What is the point? What are they trying to do? Is this just a firearms win because they've been so unsuccessful in every other endeavor so far in the administration, other than covering up Fast and Furious pretty damn successfully? I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Why now? Why this?
Well, I'll weigh in. I mean, I think it's kind of what you just alluded to. The administration, as we've said, has been incredibly not friendly to the Second Amendment. Hasn't really won any major battles. I mean, even after Sandy Hook happened, they weren't able to ride the emotion of a country after a horrible tragedy in order to pass a knee-jerk reaction legislation. And they're looking for backdoor avenues to do it. And it's not the only place the administration's doing it either. I mean, look at all the other places the administration is doing things that isn't going through Congress. So it's not really a surprise they're choosing this avenue, if you ask me.
Small victories. Like, maybe it's like, this is a small victory we can gain now, and the more small victories you gain, the better it sets you up for larger victories.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
that's definitely the case. I mean, they build on their momentum, and they could make a huge thing out of this, and and act as if we've been somehow defeated. But
well, we'll just have to wait and see on a lot of this, see how it hammers out. So, Beretta is to debut its first full-size striker-fired pistol. Are we all lining up for pre-order, John?
No, we're not. No, we are not. I mean, I've been on record as a big fan of Beretta shotguns. I have a rifle from them. They're ARX 100, which is, I guess, like the naming structure they're going with now. It's cool. It's a great idea. Not too sold on the execution of it. This particular handgun, for those of you that haven't seen it, it looks like they took every popular handgun on the market and threw it in a blender, and this is what came out. There's some really interesting features here. I think it's a positive thing for Beretta's lineup to see them moving towards more striker-fired guns. They've got the Nano is a small single stack 9mm that's striker-fired. That was a decent gun, but I mean, jury's still out on this. It's got some interesting features, but I'm not sold on it. Classically, a lot of guys do not like Beretta handguns. So I don't know. We'll see.
I'd like to hear from Nate, having been in the military. I don't even know what branch you were in. I'm so sorry. What's your background?
I spent 13 years in the Merchant Marines. It's kind of like the regular Marine Corps, but more awesome. No, I spent 13 years in the Marine Corps. But the thing is, like, that's correct. There's a lot of people.
You got with M9 then, for sure.
Yes. So the M9 is still a standard issue service pistol for all the armed forces. Although you see a lot of Glock 19 starting to come in through SOCOM and even a couple civil affairs units in the Army. So the thing is, like, the idea that we're going to leave 1911, which is an obsolete weapon. At the end of the day, 19 is an obsolete weapon. It was designed over 100 years ago. It has limited magazine capacity. Ammunition's a pain to get, even for units like MARSOC. It doesn't work out as well as people think. But my perception of Beretta is this: that it's the oldest firearms manufacturer in the world. They started making guns like the 1500s. And if you look at the Beretta M9, which is generally not well received in the military ever since day one, it's essentially an updated version of a 1934 service pistol that the Italians issued during World War II. All they did was they made it high capacity, or standard capacity nowadays, but they increased the magazine capacity and they changed a few features, and they sold that as the Beretta 92. I don't understand why a weapon being issued in the military has such an exposed slide. Like the slides cut open, the barrel's exposed. It's really easy for dirt and grime to get in there. I've seen the pistol fail in combat. Particularly the magazines early in the war in Iraq. A lot of magazines were going down because of the sand and the dirt and grime. What I have a friend that says that pistols save soldiers' lives, but they don't win battles, and that's the truth. That it's good to have a reliable handgun for the service and for law enforcement and for home defense, but at the end of the day, it only saves an individual's life. It doesn't affect battle so much. I had the opportunity to shoot with some Beretta engineers about a year ago, and I think it was during this project while they were working on this gun, and they were shooting on a class with Sentinel Concepts with Steve Fisher, and a couple of students that were not there with Beretta said, I don't understand why Beretta doesn't make a striker fired. When it's a proven concept, there's plenty of other guns out there. Why are you so late not to make a striker fired? And the other question was, and I personally don't understand this myself, I don't understand how every single production gun leaving the factory does not have a cutout for an RMR. Like, it's one more step in the machining process. It'd be a slight increase on the price of the gun, but I would prefer every gun to leave the factory. It doesn't matter what model automatic. Why not just cut the slide for an RMR, since so many people are gravitating towards putting red dots on their pistols in the first place? So I think I look at this gun, I'm like, it's good intent and potentially terrible execution. I agree with that. It looks like they took a lot of really good features from other proven designs, but they really haven't done anything terribly innovative themselves. But anything that makes the Beretta M9 go the way of the dinosaur, anything that pushes that into history where it belongs, I'm going to support. So I'm happy to see Beretta stepping into the 21st century. I mean, it is 2015. It's time that we have some more modern designs out of them instead of rehashing old ones. I hope it's successful for them, but at the same time, I severely doubt that it will be.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
So did we mention the model of it? The Beretta APX.
Yeah.
And
the APX. I mean, the grip looks comfortable. Let's be honest. So to describe it for some of the audio listeners, it's got it's kind of tough to describe. So imagine one of the Strike One pistols from Arsenal, and then give it a weird looking Picatinny rail.
Strike One. Oh.
Yeah, that's to me that's what it looks like, and it's got these. Have you ever seen one of those houses or whatever with metal roofs with the kind of rails down the center of the roof? That's kind of what the slide. Yeah, the ridges. That's what the slide looks like.
What?
The grip looks comfortable. The trigger kind of reminds me of an Apex trigger, which is really interesting. They make aftermarket triggers. The thing that's going to make or break this gun is going to be the trigger, because you look at HK. What made that VP9 great is they took a design that was already fantastic in the P30 and gave it a great striker-fired trigger. The PPQ, fantastic trigger. That's the reason that gun is relevant. Now, if this gun has a terrible trigger, nobody gonna buy it. Not happening. Nope. Adam, what do you think, buddy?
Well, but that's...
Well, the one thing that, by the way, nobody told you guys is I also do manage a gun shop, so I get to see a lot of these things. I have mixed feelings about it. Berettas in general, unless you have those guys that are coming back from the service and for whatever reason really like the 92, Berettas aren't big sellers, at least in our shop. But this one, you're spot on with your observation that it does look like a Strike One. And I agree with your assessment. I think it's going to be the trigger that makes or breaks it, because that seems to be what most people are concerned about these days, is how's the trigger, not the rest of it. Is it practical? Does it offer features that are usable or not? It doesn't appear to me that the grip is modular at all, so it's kind of a one-size-fits-all, which is interesting.
No, it is.
It is? Pardon me.
Yeah. It is.
I see that interchangeable back straps. Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, they're at least catching on the ball with what a lot of other companies are doing. It might be a little late, and it might be too late for them to get a fair share of the market, but there'll definitely be some Beretta fans at the very least that pick it up.
So what is it with these European companies coming really, really, really late to the game with a polymer striker-fired pistol when it all started in Europe, right?
I can answer that question.
Can you answer it in one sentence?
Can it be can it be a run-on sentence? with companies like Beretta, FN, HK. European-based companies that have an American subsidiary, those European nations generally control the American affiliate, and even though the American market might say, we want this, old world Europe says, no, we're not going to make that. And I don't think the European market fully understands the American market. I think the company that's the best at that and allowing the American affiliate to do their job and produce guns for the American market is FN, and it's one of the reasons why FN is so successful. Beretta, on the other hand, outside of selling limited guns across Europe because of the gun laws across Europe, they still hold a lot of military contracts. They still make all the guns for the Italian military. They sell internationally as well, but they're not really competing for the American market. And I think partially because of the last 20 years of other striker-fired guns like Glock and the XDs and M&Ps, I don't think Beretta sells as many handguns as their competition in this country. So they say, well, who cares about the Americans? We're selling our guns just fine elsewhere.
Well, let's talk about FedEx and how they won't ship the box that makes a homemade metal semi-automatic rifle. What? So this is all about the defense distributed Ghost Gunner CNC mill, which it's just a really simple square box, really, that will cut out. It's really not even a full-blown CNC mill, but it will cut out the proper places on an 80% lower. And apparently FedEx has got its undies in a bundle, and they're refusing to touch this thing because it makes ghost guns or something. Adam, you're a lawyer. Do you think this is something coming out of the FedEx's legal department?
Probably not so much from the actual legal implication standpoint, which is always a possibility because you can sue anybody for anything, but it also might just be out of an abundance of caution. The device, if I recall correctly, the Ghost Gunner, I believe it's... I can't remember. Is this one the one that does 80%? I think there's another one on the market that does complete blanks, if I recall correctly. But and those guys down in Texas, I think, were going to mill some out on the Capitol steps in protest. Yeah, it probably is an abundance of caution from FedEx, and they're a private company. That's the other thing, so they can make whatever rule they want that we're not going to ship X, Y, or Z. So that's my thought. Is it's probably just out of an abundance of caution. They very well could view it as something that they just don't want to be involved in because of the uncertainty of whether or not it looks like the statement from their spokesman as to whether or not it's a regulated commodity.
Well, and the weird thing is you can ship firearms, full-blown firearms, through FedEx.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it might be because their legal team, for whatever reason, advised them that we're not certain what the status of this is. We don't know if it's legal or illegal. There's conflicting opinions about it. When you ship a firearm through FedEx, it's going from an individual to a licensed dealer or dealer to dealer most of the time. And a lot of times, FedEx might not even know what's in the box.
Yeah, but let's be honest. This is not anything besides a machine.
Correct.
This is not. Yes, it has a purpose. It is a CNC mill, though. Like if we're going to be honest here, we're not shipping guns. We're not shipping 80% lowers. We're shipping a machine, and it just so happens to have an interesting purpose. I think it's nonsense. I think FedEx is out of line. I don't think my opinion on that is going to change what they're doing, but I think it's kind of ridiculous. I kind of want one of these too.
I think it's to me, I don't understand why people try to hold back technology. It's like the big stink people made about the 3D printing technology and for the CAD files for AR-15 receivers to be open source. Like, it's not illegal to own AR-15. It's not illegal to build your own gun as long as you go through the legal process. You follow with the letter of the law. So to me, like, not refusing to ship this machine is like trying to refuse to ship files or Dremel tool or any of the other tools that you can use to make a gun. Like I said, you could take all the guns in the world and then throw it in the ocean, and nobody has a gun. And by the end of tomorrow, I would have a gun because I understand science. I know that saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal makes gunpowder. It's so ridiculous to think that that's going to change anything or affect anything. And most criminals aren't going to go and buy a machine and try to figure out how to make their own rifle. They're just going to go get a baseball bat and rob somebody's house and steal guns that way.
Yes, on all accounts. Natalie, are you going to buy one of these things?
Well, you know what? My only concern, like, worst case scenario, I can see where FedEx is coming from if they're worried about this shipping to, the Sinaloa cartel, right? Or like somebody who's going to try to mass produce these with absolutely no tracking. And I mean, obviously, I'm not a big fan of tracking anyway, but But just to be devil's advocate here, I get where the company's coming from, and yes, I would buy one.
Just so you're aware, Natalie, I mean, the cartel doesn't need it. They're getting guns straight from the military.
Yeah, they're
from the federal government. The federal government is giving them guns.
Federales.
Yes. Eric Holder and the ATF are just
our
might as well
government
ship them direct. Yeah, I know. Tragic. They're not anymore, though, right? I mean, is that still happening under the table?
So,
Okay.
So NRA's donations have soared since the Newtown, Connecticut school massacre is up 11.5% to $96.4 billion. This is on NewYorkDailyNews.com. So, what do you guys think? I mean, it's no surprise that their donations are up, right?
Yeah, good. I'm glad the donations are up.
This just means America's smart. I mean, what frustrates me about this article, there's some very manipulative sentence in here about how I just can't believe, most Americans would have a visceral reaction towards those numbers following a tragedy where 20 kids were slaughtered. And it's amazing how out of touch these people are. And I mean, is this a Bloomberg group? It is, right?
It's New Yorkers Against Gun Violence is the person that said that, the executive director of that.
Well, as we all know, there's a lot of firearms experts that come out of New York City, so
yeah.
they can't be wrong, right?
Right. So anyway, I mean, they're just so completely out of touch, and I mean, to me, it's so encouraging because it just once again, demonstrates the fact that Americans are smart and they understand what gun control ultimately does, and everybody was heartbroken that day for months on end about it. Still, I mean, we all still are, of course, and for you guys, it happened practically in your backyard, but everyone was affected by that. But to think that the fact that the NRA has had increased donations as a result is just encouraging to me. And it's not just NRA. I know all the pro-gun groups in California are doing really well as well. So I think it's great. It just proves Americans are smart.
I mean, if you look at it on a grand scale, this is the American people saying, we will not be manipulated based off of tragedy.
Right.
It's that simple. We will not stand for this sort of crap that the government is trying to push. We will stick to our rights. And I got to comment on the one thing that always stands out and just drives me crazy is the name of this, you said this person's quote, the name of the group is New Yorkers Against Gun Violence because every other type of violence is fine, right? Just gun violence. That's the problem.
Right.
Let's talk about just atrocious.
I had a conversation one time in D.C. with a guy who, at the time it was still, what was it? The Bloomberg group before the whole Moms Demand Action and before his Everytown,
Yeah.
What was it? Do you remember what it was called? It was like something against gun violence, right? And I mean, before it wasn't New York, but it was something against gun violence. And I talked to the guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, I do some pro bono work." He's a lawyer, so I do some pro bono work for this group. And he said, something like Americans Against Guns. And I said, "Oh, you mean Americans Against Gun Violence?" And he said, "No, it's against guns." I was like, "Well, at least you're honest." I mean, I know that that's not the name of the group, so
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, he wasn't even hiding it in the least.
Things like this, I mean, it's a reminder that there's people in this country that if you gave them the opportunity to take our Constitution and rip it into shreds, they would. I swear, it seems like it's their goal to do that. And for people like Bloomberg, for example, I'm always very curious why some people that have a lot of power and a lot of money focus so much against firearms, and not when a more worthy cause like stamping out, homelessness or some other social cause that's actually more prevalent than firearms violence. Like there's a lot of things we can focus on.
He's making money on this. You know what I mean? This is one of the most profitable things for Michael Bloomberg. Let's be honest.
He doesn't need it.
He's
got billions of dollars. What's he making?
Listen, when you make $1,000, are you going to go, I don't want another 1,000? It's the same.
No. I'm not suggesting.
No. Here's the thing, though. It's like when you are that level of rich, you don't need that money. The only thing you have the aspire for is more power.
Yep.
I look at it more. It's a power thing than a money thing, right?
Sure.
It has to be.
Well, and also these people who have the money on that level, they don't trade in dollars. You know, it's more about commodities, and power is a commodity for them. So I think you nailed it.
I can tell you that I've been a member of the NRA for a number of years. They had one of those deals to become a life member. One of the things I'd be interested to know about the statistic, though, is where that money was donated to in the NRA. A lot of people don't understand that when you donate money to the NRA, it doesn't go to lobbying. The NRA ILA is where the money that you donate actually goes to lobbying members of Congress. So I'd be curious to see how that breaks down. And that's a very important point, too, because if you think paying your membership dues and just being a member of the NRA is, enough to get stuff going, well, your membership dues pay for your membership and all the stuff that's associated with that. But if you want to have an impact and you want to donate money to the NRA to be a lobbying organization, you need to do it at the NRA ILA.
Right, so when you donate to the NRA, it goes straight into producing more junk mail and letters to ask you for more money. But when you donate to the NRA ILA, it's actually effective.
That's exactly what I was going to say, John.
And you guys,
and to be fair, you can get all of that. You can tell them to stop. Yeah, you can call them and say.
Absolutely, that's the number one complaint.
I just like to poke.
It's the number one.
It's valid. It's really annoying, but it is. Yes, sorry, Adam, to cut you off, but yeah, it's true that when your $25 goes to, or $35, whatever it is, goes to straight to general operations. So you do have to designate that any of your donations or whatever goes straight to ILA. And like for instance, we're having a fundraiser for the NRA women. When at NRA annual meetings, and that's a whole different deal. None of that is going to go to either general operations or ILA. It's going to go to the women's programs. So there's so much that the NRA does that people don't know about. They're actually primarily gun safety, and different programs, and I mean the Whittington Center and so many other things. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I think that's a really important note. I mean, I would love to see the NRA doing more to educate people on what they do and what they are on a grand scale, because when you say the NRA, you think lobbyists and fighting for our rights, and that's what you think. That's what the American public thinks. And they don't know about these gun safety programs, these young shooter education programs, the women's programs, all the things that they do that are positive and awesome. A lot of people don't know about, and it's a shame. Yeah. I think their marketing team or I don't know, somebody's dropping the ball on that, because I would love to see that out there on a much larger scale, because it's important.
I totally agree with you, and in working with them over the past couple of years, that's been a main complaint of mine, because I learned so much in going to headquarters and just learning about what different people do there and how really vast the operations really are, from hunting and not just guns. I mean, they're doing archery and all sorts of other life skills, and I mean even for at-risk youth and things like that. It's really pretty amazing. But you're right, none of that is ever acknowledged. I mean, obviously you've got a media that's working against them, so they're never gonna willfully acknowledge, that the NRA ever does anything positive, to save lives. They're not going to talk about all the safety classes and all of the firearm responsibility that they teach. But it is there, and I think, that's part of our duty as firearms owners, and if you are a member of the NRA, to really stay up to date on all of that.
So let's talk about the pro-gun group that wins an injunction against Pennsylvania city's gun control laws. I'm going to let you Pennsylvania guys take this one away.
I don't know that we've said yet that we're so myself, Nate, and Adam are all from the southeastern corner of Pennsylvania. For the people out there listening, we're all kind of in the same hood, so to speak. Go ahead, Adam. I know this is right on the tip of your tongue, man.
Yeah. Okay. So As just as a background for our listeners and people watching, the House bill, I forget what the House bill was, but Act 192 was passed here in Pennsylvania recently. And what that did was it strengthened the already existing preemption in the code against municipalities who were violating the Uniform Firearms Act. The Uniform Firearms Act in Pennsylvania made it a misdemeanor of the first degree to actually violate it, and you had a number of municipalities which were passing legislation that was in violation of state law, which according to state law you can't do. So there was no mechanism for relief. If you wanted to sue, you could, but there was no way that you would be able to do so in any kind of fashion that would make economic sense, especially for the injury that you were suffering, unless you wanted to prove a point. So what happened was Act 192 was passed, gave membership groups like the NRA standing, and the NRA ended up suing Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the city of Lancaster. U.S. Law Shield was the one who sued Harrisburg, which is what this article is about. I believe in their press release about it, they said that they sued and they wanted to be the first person to do it, something along those lines, and it showed in their complaint, which we saw. Anyway, so the judge issued an injunction halting, I believe, 3 of the ordinances and not the other 2. They challenged 5 of them. And unfortunately, what they left out in their complaint was a Commonwealth Court decision that would have been able to at least strike down 1 more ordinance. So we're waiting to see where that goes. The firm I work at is currently involved in litigation, and I'm not going to comment on that, against the city of Harrisburg. So it's an interesting time here in Pennsylvania, and we'll see how it pans out. I know a lot of groups, especially Ceasefire PA, I get their emails. They're very upset that now there is a mechanism for relief and that these organizations can come in on behalf of their members and file suit. And the unfortunate thing is that all of these municipalities in passing these ordinances are violating state law.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people are currently saying is that this Act 192 was strictly for gun rights groups. It was designed to be for gun rights groups to sue municipalities, and that's simply not the case. And what I find also interesting is that people are claiming that the legal groups that are going out and suing these municipalities and defending our rights are doing it just for the money. They're not doing it for the money, but they want to have their time covered. They want to recoup their legal fees so that they're not left out on their butts when they try to pay their own bills. These people are defending our rights. We can at least give them, a little something to make sure that they continue to defend our rights in Pennsylvania.
Let me just jump in here real quick, and then I'll step out. I can tell you that the attorney I work under, Joshua Prince, he's a very well-known firearms attorney here in the Commonwealth. He spent a lot of time, free, pro bono stuff, sending over, I believe at this point, it's over 100 letters to different municipalities around the Commonwealth saying that your ordinances are in violation of state law and you should look into repealing them. We gave all these municipalities notice so they wouldn't have to incur unnecessary costs of litigation. And all that was, his time, he spent an exorbitant amount of time, and we're upwards of 75 or 80 municipalities who took a look at their their ordinances and said, yeah, you know what, we are violating state law, let's repeal them. Unfortunately, you have the city of Harrisburg, the city of Lancaster, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh who don't really care about spending taxpayer money. And it's the taxpayers who are punished by the politicians who are in control because it's not coming out of the politicians' pocket. So they don't care.
And Adam, just so you know, we've talked about this on the show.
Okay.
In recent time, I've mentioned both you and Josh when it comes to this, and I'm glad we finally have you on to comment on it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know if Nate has anything to weigh in because he is near one of those cities that did get sued.
I mean, I live right outside Lancaster. I recently moved from Lancaster City, and I look at the trend through Lancaster City. Like, there's been a plague of violence in Lancaster City, and that actually kind of pushed me into moving out and back out into the farmland where I grew up. So I look at the trend that the city's been taking, and they've been making more rash decisions, more trying to kind of push their own agenda. I would say a lot of it's anti-gun. As far as the entire state goes, and the issue that we're talking about right now, I'm aware of it. I actually watched that video that you posted, John, not too long ago on Facebook, where Mr. Prince goes on, was Philadelphia News, I believe, and pleads his case. And I think he did a very good job explaining this, because it's an issue I think a lot of Pennsylvanians don't really truly understand. But at the end, it goes more back to different cities and places in the state. They're violating the state law, like the state constitution, the state law, the things that we've collectively agreed on as Pennsylvanians, and they're basically just writing laws that work around that, but not necessarily work around it, but blatantly violate those state laws. So people were trying to say, like, oh, well, it's guns, it's guns, it's guns. It's not just about firearms. I mean, that means any city or municipality can arbitrarily violate state law anytime they want by just making their own law, and that's not how this works.
That's what Ceasefire PA is trying to say, that it's okay. They went on, so it was kind of a debate between Josh and this other atrocious human being, and she was claiming that it's totally fine that they're breaking the law because it's in her interest. It follows the line of their interest group, so it's totally fine that they're breaking the law.
And she because they disagree with it.
And she essentially admitted that on television.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, she did. She flat out more or less said that if we disagree with it, it's okay. I will just quickly, I did see there's an article that Josh did send me a little earlier tonight. He did post a blog article asking whether or not Harrisburg, the leaders of Harrisburg, were engaged in a criminal conspiracy to violate state law. It's a fantastic blog article. I highly recommend everybody look at it. And it's made news. The Lancaster mayor, because they were also named in this a little later on down, says, quote, "It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard a lawyer say." Well, I disagree with you looking at the definitions of everything under state law, and you're, in fact, violating the law. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
The funny thing is, a lot of these people that are defending that stance, they're defending it with emotion. They're not defending it with fact. Correct. And I mean, this is a very emotional subject for everybody involved, because it's stuff that's attacking the Second Amendment, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in that emotion. But I think especially what Mr. Prince is doing, what you guys are doing, Adam, with Firearms, your consulting group, is we're using reason and logic and written law to defend our stance on this. We're not getting as emotional about it, because it's kind of like, all right, well, this person, I feel this and I believe that. Well, you can feel something and believe something all day long, but if you're violating the law, you're still violating the law. It doesn't change that fact. And I think it's actually working out pretty well for us, not being as emotional as those evil people trying to hurt the Second Amendment, particularly in the Commonwealth.
Sure.
Well, let's move on to a state where reason and logic was outlawed in like 1968. So Illinois Democrats have.
Oh! I'm sorry. I thought you meant California.
Oh. Illinois Democrats have introduced the Firearms Registration Act, which may test the new paradigm here in Illinois, because now we have a Republican in the governor's house. Yeah, so this makes me feel kind of warm and fuzzy inside, because it sounds so great. No sarcasm from now on. So if this passes, every person in the state must register each firearm he or she owns, and also a person shall not be able to purchase or possess ammunition within the state without first having obtained a registration certificate identifying a firearm that is suitable for use that with that ammunition.
So ridiculous.
What could possibly go wrong here? That harkens back to the Weimar Republic of Germany prior to the Nazis taking over.
Absolutely. It gets better. No, it gets better. In addition, it requires the Department of State Police must complete a background check on any person who applies for this registration certificate for a firearm. Blah blah blah. State or new resident that comes in also must have background ran. Also, you cannot transfer to relatives anymore, even upon death. You must get a new certificate. It gets better and better and better.
Wow.
And Class 2 felony for anyone to sell or transfer ownership of a firearm to another person without complying with all these easy-to-follow registration requirements.
I just have songs playing in my head, and the words "come and take it" just repeatedly, just like a billboard flashing in my head. I dare you.
Well,
You've got to be kidding me.
She gets points for being thorough.
Touché.
I mean, that was absurd.
I don't think it's ever going to get anywhere because it is so outlandish and just crazy talk. I love it when they reach. I mean, you're right. You got to give her props. She's reaching for the moon here. She's just throwing the whole kitchen sink in.
She's shooting for the skies and hoping something sticks.
Has this ever been introduced before? The only reason I'm asking that is because in Pennsylvania, earlier this month, there was a similar bill introduced by a representative from Philadelphia, and I checked into that, and that was introduced, a couple other times. Granted, our legislative makeup is very different than Illinois, but I'd be curious to know whether or not it's been tried before.
Wasn't this something that they tried in Connecticut or New York or some nonsense? The problem really is that if you look at history and what's the age-old adage, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. It really is a playbook out of the Weimar Republic of Germany prior to the Nazis taking over, and their whole thing was, if you look at the history, that we're going to store these records in a safe place so that they can't be used in a manner that would be improper. And look how that turned out.
Right.
Not saying that it's going to turn into Nazi Germany, but they knew exactly where everything was.
Well, and that's their end game here, I think. They gun grabbers got to know where it's at to be able to grab them all.
We must know where your firearms are! We must know!
Well, I mean, they're already, when I go buy ammo here, I got to open up my wallet because when I buy ammo, they're like, papers, please? Papers?
Yeah.
And I got to show them my paper to buy ammo, yeah.
I think the thing that didn't come through in this article is that they give each person a little star thing to put on them.
Sewn on your outer layer, sewn on the outer layer of your clothing. Yeah, that's part of it.
I think that's part of this thing that she's introducing.
Well, I'm pretty optimistic here in Illinois. Like we talked about a week or two ago, we have a silencer bill that possibly has a chance now, so it may become a much quieter state. And we have concealed carry, and I'm looking up. I think this is just proof of that gun control is hopefully dying here in Illinois. They're just kind of flailing around here in their death throw. Because, like I said, we have a governor now that may be signing some of this pro-gun legislation here in the future.
Well, let's hope so. Here's the hoping.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
It's definitely on the outside.
Sorry, California. I feel for you.
That's all right. I'm fighting out there too. I'm working on it. I'm about to apply for my concealed carry out there, and I will be documenting it just like Emily Miller in D.C.
Well, speaking of
fingers crossed.
Yeah, speaking of
I know.
Emily,
how about that segue, man?
In D.C., only 16 carry permits have been issued, and apparently she is one of those 16. I think she was number 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right.
So, I mean, they're going crazy here. So that's over a dozen issued. I mean,
well, let's put it this way. In Los Angeles County, it's been so difficult. Like if I went to Santa Barbara County or if I went to Orange County, it would be a completely different story. But in Los Angeles County, under Sheriff Lee Baca, for the last few years, rumor is the average permit that was granted, the average number was 4 per year.
Oh my
So,
Lord.
you know, yeah, DC's going gangbusters, man. Yeah, it's exciting for DC.
I have the feeling those 4 that get approved are people with power and influence.
Probably.
And they all happen to donate to his campaign. Funny how that works.
What?
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that Emily's, because she was documenting it and being public, do you think it's possible that they just issued it because of that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That is a damn shame.
That's
Yeah, it
a good point. I probably.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. But you know, that's fine. Then other people need to be documenting their journeys as well. You know.
Agreed. Yeah.
All need to write our book,
Yeah.
and then we can get our permit, right?
No, you don't have to write a book. You just, I mean, that's what YouTube's for, man. You know.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
What's really sad is a buddy of mine, longtime friend of mine, sends me a text the other day and asks if he can put me on as a reference here in Pennsylvania to get his license to carry a firearm. And I said, sure, not a problem. I've known the guy for years. That's fine. And he texts me back like almost instantly and goes, oh, yeah, I just walked out. It took 3 minutes. And then you've got this. Unbelievable.
All right. Texas jury finds American sniper killer guilty.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's a big high five. I was so thankful that it didn't happen in in California or New York or any other crazy state that would have you know, not done. I was impressed. I think the jury set a land speed record for deliberation. I don't know. That was
Did they really?
pretty.
After
Well,
just
I mean, it was
9 days.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 9 days of proceedings. They came up with a sentence of life without parole.
Yeah.
I still think we need to bring back public hangings. I think that's the way to really make some change in this country.
I'm pro hanging. I could run on that platform.
Yeah. I think I was watching something. You know, obviously social media was full of this stuff, and they had Marcus Luttrell on. I think it was MSNBC or something, and he was commenting on it, and he was referencing the fact that the defense of, is it Routh? Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know.
Yeah, that's how
Anyway.
everybody's been saying it.
Just
Yeah.
say dirtbag. Don't even say his name.
Roger that. This guy, this scumbag, he was pleading insanity, and Marcus Luttrell gets on there and he says that's garbage. You know, even anybody with PTSD, that is not an excuse to murder somebody. You know, and the quote unquote leftist media is out there going, oh well, you know, he had PTSD, so it's totally fine. You know, he was bound to act out, as if that is what makes it okay to do something horrible.
Well, no, I think they were trying to condemn members of the military who have PTSD, and also he didn't even see combat. So can you
Yes.
even have PTSD if you?
No.
I mean, I don't know, Nate.
All right.
Nate, it's time for you to chime in.
Yeah, this is all right. So here's the thing about PTSD. Like in the military, it became stigma, and it made guys
Right.
scared to come forward and say, "Listen, you know, I had a rough deployment. I saw some things. I didn't have time to really compute what was happening, to process it. You know, so guys have issues. I mean, being away from your family for 6 months to a year at a time, that's tough, even if you're hanging out in Paris the whole time. But spending that much time away from your family with people trying to kill you, that obviously is going to affect your psyche a little bit, right? It's going to change your perception of things. And what we started doing was we realized that we were over-deploying guys, and they started basically breaking up time where guys weren't coming back from the field just immediately redeploy, because that was happening early in the war. We realized that the best thing we could do to help our guys process and move through the traumatic events that they survived was to give them some decompression time, right? So the gentleman, actually, Chaos, we talked about this on the plane ride home from SHOT Show. What I say about PTSD is PTSD is it's post-traumatic stress disorder, right? That just because you have PTSD, that doesn't make you insane. It doesn't make you less of a person. It doesn't make you a non-functional person. It just means that you have some things that you need to work through, and for certain people, you work through it in different ways. The scumbag that shot Chris Kyle and the other
Chad
journalist,
Littlefield.
Chad Littlefield, right? That guy had a long history of psychological issues that started well before he joined the Marine Corps, right? Now the thing is, you can conceal those things, you can hide those things. The guy got in all kinds of trouble in the Marine Corps. He was never in combat. He was a 2111. He was an armorer, which is basically a guy that sits at a workbench all day and gauges rifles to make sure they're not going to blow up and kill other Marines. He was nowhere near the front lines. He was nowhere near a combat situation. So him claiming PTSD from what he had to do or what he experienced in the Marine Corps, I'm going to say that's a big crock, right? I think the guy was already predisposed. He wasn't, he didn't play very well with other Marines. There's a whole series of things that said this guy's a bad apple. He should never have been in the service in the first place.
Yeah.
But to say that PTSD is going to make you predisposed for violence, we have 10 years of us fighting the global war and terror in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thousands and thousands of veterans, some of which are suffering from PTSD. Then why is it not a daily bloodbath? Why don't we see all these other veterans that survived some pretty horrific events just snapping left and right? So it's a bad thing because the more we try to credit these idiots or these terrible things that people do, just because they're a veteran, that doesn't mean that PTSD is an excuse.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but it just makes me think of, blaming Newtown on the gun, Yeah,
exactly. So what I tell people is like, all right, there's people legitimately in this country that get in a very bad car accident and their spouse was in the passenger side of the vehicle and their husband or wife was killed or their child was killed in that car accident. And it affects them emotionally and psychologically. It was a traumatic event. So what do? They go to therapy and they work through it, and then maybe they're scared to ride in vehicles for a while. The thing is that war is psychological trauma. It's a very horrific thing, and it's the tax that our soldiers, Marines, and servicemen as a whole have to pay to defend this country. But the thing is that that's like saying just because you survived one deployment to Afghanistan, I don't see these people that were in traumatic events here stateside, such as the car accident. I don't see them going on killing sprees. I don't see them trying to claim PTSD when they break the law. PTSD is not an exclusive thing that is owned by the military. It's not. I think it's been bastardized and cheapened. It's sad to say that because it scares guys away from actually getting help, the ones that need the help the most, because of how our civilization or our society has said, oh, you were in the service, you obviously are a broken person. You obviously have PTSD. That's not true.
Right. And it also deters, family members from wanting their children to go into the service, which is an incredibly noble profession and noble time in their lives. So, I mean, there's so many layers, so many levels of why this is wrong to use PTSD as his excuse. The dude has mental illness and a really screwed up family that smokes, what was it, formaldehyde-laced pot with him? I mean... Yeah,
I feel that his family is as much to blame as the guy that committed the murder.
Yes.
From what I understand, his family knew that his family called the police multiple times, took him to be checked in, for psychological screening, all this other stuff. So it was an ongoing issue within this guy's life before he ever committed the murders. And it appears that when they hooked him up with Chris Kyle, they didn't say a word. They didn't let Chris Kyle know what he was getting into when they turned him over. Like, maybe you can help our son. In a way, like I view those people, the parents, just as guilty as the bag of shit that murdered
our hero. Yeah, I agree with you. That's crossed my mind a lot too, which also raises the issue of the VA. Who wouldn't give him any treatment. I mean, if you look at him now compared to what he looked like 2 years ago when he committed the murders, I mean, he's put on a ton of weight. He was practically non-responsive. I mean, he was able to walk in, shake hands, but he had zero affect on his face. You never saw any sort of emotion from him. and he's medicated. He's super medicated, right now. And the state has been doing an excellent job of that, as we can see. But where the heck has the VA been? That was totally identifiable, as you said, long before he was even in the military. And it's just another failure. It's incredibly frustrating. This could have been prevented on so many levels. VA, family, girlfriend. It's so frustrating because this man was a hero, and Chad was too, and it's just, I'm glad Texas gave him the justice that they both deserved. But as Marcus Luttrell said on his Facebook, man, yeah, you've got the guilty verdict in, but the healing is going to take a long time.
Yeah, I think this kind of the thing that we need to look at this as is this is just another instance of the mental health issue here in the United States rearing its ugly head.
Yes.
Every single time something horrible happens, we have some, nationwide tragedy happen. Every single time in the last 5 years, it's been some dude that's had mental health issues and couldn't get help, didn't get help, whatever, because of the state of mental health affairs in the United States.
Look at
it is atrocious. Hold on. People look down on people that are saying, "Hey, man, I'm depressed." There's a negative stigma, just like with PTSD. It's the same thing. It's just on a different scale. PTSD is classically considered a military thing, even though it's not, like Nate said. And this, we as a nation look down on people that have problems. Instead of trying to help them, we try to hold them down and pigeonhole them, and that is not okay.
Look at how many, back in the old days, we had insane asylums, right? There's asylums everywhere across this country, right? So most of those asylums are closed down because we started coming with pharmaceuticals to treat those issues, right? So the thing is that in the old days, if you had somebody that was suffering from schizophrenia or other psychological condition, you basically just checked them into an asylum and you turned them over, and that was to keep them safe and to keep them from hurting people in the outside world. We've closed almost all those asylums because we have medication. So now when somebody suffers a mental condition that makes them violent or schizophrenic or paranoid or whatever it might be, we trust them to take their own medicine. So the thing is, our population has also grown exponentially since those asylums were built in the first place. So if you look at how many Americans legitimately have psychological issues and that we blindly trust that those people are going to stay on their meds, of course there's going to be people that don't. There's going to be people that are misdiagnosed, and there's going to be people that don't take their medicine. There's going to be people that slip through the cracks. It's not a firearms issue. It's not an issue of violence. It's a psychological issue.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I'm glad you brought up the asylum situation, because yes, it was. They had medication in the asylums, but they were also doing lobotomies, so and electric shock therapy. So ultimately they were closed down because of cruelty, because of perceived cruelty, and and probably actual cruelty as well. But now. We have advanced so dramatically when it comes to mental health. It's still a burgeoning, area of medicine, for sure, and there's a lot to learn, and the brain is so incredibly complicated. But to Chaos's point, the other thing is that yes, there's a lot of mental health. Mental health issues abound in the United States. Well, probably anywhere, but just take the United States, North America, right now. And the reality is most people with any sort of mental health issue, depression or whatever, are not violent. They're not going to hurt other people, and they're likely not going to hurt themselves, and occasionally they do. That's horrible, but we need to be able to pinpoint, how and when these people are going to harm others. And to me, this Eddie Ray Rouse situation was pretty damn obvious, He had threatened so many people, and talk about perfect candidate for an asylum, which is basically where he's going now anyway, but it should have been preemptive, and obviously I don't think our nation's ever going to really, really get over this one, but I think you guys are exactly right. We need to be talking more and more about the mental health situation and identifying the fact that PTSD is not what the lefty media wants it to be,
Yeah. And PTSD is not what killed those two gentlemen.
That's right.
Well, if you'd like to contribute to the Firearms Radio Network and This Week in Guns by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, you can pick up Chris Kyle's book, American Sniper, over there, his autobiography of the most lethal sniper in U.S. military history. So you can check that out. I got a link in the show notes, and helps support pro-gun shows like This Week in Guns. We are to the full auto news segment, stories the real media won't talk about, and other crazy stuff. So for the new guys here, this is where we each pick a crazy story or two to call our own and talk about, laugh about, cry about, and so on. So, John, do you have one lined up here for us?
I'm opening one called the Redneck Gatling Gun, and essentially, what is that, 6 barrels, I think? So for those of you that aren't familiar with what a Gatling gun is, it's basically a bunch of barrels that spin around, and it's a bunch of rifles combined, and they spin, and it's amazing and glorious. And the video here is a Gatling gun made out of AKs. We've seen them done on what's the name of that show? Never Been Done Before?
Never Been Done Before.
That's the name of
the show that shall not be spoken of.
Yes, that show. They did it with Sega 12s, and this is with AKs, and as far as I'm concerned, this is awesome. I love this kind of crap. It's just a bunch of spinning AKs shooting. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason besides the fact that it's really cool.
The problem is you can't belt feed it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. When you
doesn't look functional to me.
For it. Yeah.
Yeah, this doesn't look functional. I feel like it needs a few more modifications here to actually be fun.
I wonder if you could fit like a bunch of drum mags on there, if it would. I'm sure it would affect the rotation of it, but if you could lock in like some 75 round drums, you'd probably have it go for longer than 3 seconds. I guess. I don't know, but either way, it's cool. You know, just one of those things.
This is going on my Suburban.
They'll love that in Illinois, Jake.
Hey, we're pro-gun now, didn't you hear?
Yeah.
All right, Natalie, do you want to tackle one of these?
Oh, I'm skimming. Let's see. So you want to bury your guns on guns.com. We're hiding something. Let's see. Okay, apparently this is literally about people. Oh, okay, it's how to bury your guns without screwing them up, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
This isn't quite as exciting as I thought it was going to be, but but yeah, basically it's saying get some 8 to 10 inch PVC pipe. It can be made to custom fit as a capsule to bury your guns underground. So when the zombie apocalypse happens, well, actually the zombies won't care. So when the government comes after your guns, actually, Jake, this will be really useful for you if that law passes.
I know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We should really probably invest in some PVC pipe, guys.
I don't know. My guns, they've all fallen off a boat in a tragic accident, so I don't actually own any firearms anymore.
Oh, that is so sad.
Yeah,
it was
I don't know what happened.
Weekend.
Yeah,
it was awful.
What a tragedy.
But you can't. I'm telling you guys, you can't do that in California because all your lakes are dried up.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. We'll just have to find all the nuclear bunkers and bury them there.
Well, I mean, they say that guns only have 2 enemies, and that's rust and politicians. So, if you are gonna go bury a weapon in your backyard, a firearm, then there's definitely a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, I guess.
Yes, and this article outlines the right way. So,
I don't know. Could you guys give up one of your guns? Like, would you bury it? I can't. I like all my guns. I don't want to put them away in the ground. I want to shoot them. I want to have fun with them.
It's like keeping my gun in my go bag, I mean, I have one that I keep in the go bag. It's my Ruger SR9,
I look at it like this, like, if you took your average rifleman, like infantry rifleman from like the modern day Marine Corps, and you gave him a Mosin Nagant bolt action 5-shot and said, hey, this is all you get for Afghanistan, he would still kill a lot of Taliban with that Mosin Nagant. And what's a Nagant? That's like $100 gun. So, I mean, that's what like people spend on a Friday night. What would be the big deal about burying? You don't have to bury your best gun, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You just, you have it's the spare. It's the spare.
Yeah, that's. I guess
Your
this
spare
is an
tire, you
buy
know?
2 of them.
You're going about it all wrong. You got to go Jason Bourne, shove it in a safe deposit box with a bunch of cash.
All right. Well, Adam, do you see one of these stories you want to take on?
Oh yeah, I'm debating between. I guess I'll go with this one. People forgetting they have guns at the airport. So I don't know how many of you fly on a regular basis, or how many of you travel with guns when you do, but TSA, along with the airlines, have regulations as to flying with guns, and one of those is that it needs to be in a locked, hard-sided case, unloaded. Seems that a number of people, over 2,000 last year, forgot they had almost always a loaded firearm at the TSA checkpoint. That is quite a significant number, and I really wonder how these people forgot they had a gun.
Situational awareness.
And more importantly, just didn't check your stuff. Whenever I go to the airport, I make sure I... Go ahead.
Well, okay. So I've never done this personally, but I know 2 people who have. One of them is Shemaine Nugent. Bless her heart. She had, and it was all over Drudge Report, and I don't know I don't remember the circumstances, but I got a phone call recently from a friend who works for a news outlet and lives, near where I grew up. And he said, I just almost dropped a wordy dirt. I totally edited myself, and we don't even have to do a timestamp, Jake. I just want you to be proud of that.
Thank you.
Anyway,
So
you're welcome. So anyway, he said, crap, I had to go cover this rally in Dallas, and I can't believe it, but I switched out my bag, and I was rushing because I had to get all my camera gear and all that stuff, and I was just doing carry-ons. So I get through, and then they stop me and they say, hey, is there something in your bag you want to tell us about? And he's like, no, and I mean, he really did not even think that gun was in his carry-on. So, it was a quick change situation. It was, rushed fast. A lot of people are in a rush going to the airport, last minute things, whatever work it is. But look, I mean, people, it's easy. You lose your keys, right? You can't, I mean, there are little things that happen throughout the day. It's understandable. I think that they have actually, like back in the day, 9/11, like quickly post 9/11, we're really having issues with this, and the punishment was much harsher, but they have adapted the laws, from what I understand, to not be as intense. So it's now like a misdemeanor or something, fortunately. So, I mean, yeah, be smart, be aware, but unfortunately it does happen to people, hopefully never us, but I don't know. I have sympathy for these people because, it sucks, and they're probably just trying to, get to wherever they're going, do whatever they do. I don't know. They're thinking about kids. They're thinking about work. That's where their head is.
Let's also
it's like leaving something on the plane. I leave stuff on the plane from time to time, and Anyway, what were you gonna say, Chaos? Sorry.
Let us not forget that these stats come from the TSA themselves. And
don't forget.
There you go.
Let's talk about how great of an organization that is.
Don't forget to pick up that can, citizen.
I think the TSA is atrocious, and I would not be surprised if this was either A, doctored, or B, a complete lie. I know guys have gotten pulled out of line for things like gun parts that are not firearms, that are not illegal to carry on a plane, and things like that. And for all we know, this could be a part of that. That could be a part of that stat. It's ridiculous.
That's a good point. I've actually... Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, it happened after SHOT Show. Geisley posted about it on their Facebook page that one of their employees had, I think, an SSA in their backpack, and TSA pulled them, and they had to get rid of it.
Yeah, they wouldn't allow a trigger.
Oh, my God.
Didn't have anything else to create the rest of the firearm that is required for...
Oh, that was with Geisley, right? That happened to Bill on the way back. I got nervous because I had grip stops in my bag, and I'm like trying to figure out like if TSA says I had like one of my original prototypes, it's unreplaceable, it's priceless, and I'm like, oh no, they're gonna take my grip stops, and they looked at it and just let me right through. They're like, that's obviously not a gun part.
Well, they took away some golf tees of mine that were painted to look like 223 rounds.
Wow.
Yeah, golf tees. Totally wooden. I'm not kidding you. And I have been harassed for my little flat gold-plated gun necklace that is like my signature necklace that I never take off. And no joke, it is the shape of a gun. No mechanics whatsoever. And I have been harassed for it before.
It's like gun Pop-Tarts. Let us also not forget that the people that work for this glorious agency, the Transportation Security Administration, these people are, how do I put this?
Thieves. That's
tip of
what
this
you're looking for.
They are bottom of the barrel. They are not educated. They are, as far as I'm aware, they do not go through background checks to become the people that, quote unquote, protect America while we're traveling.
I'm sure that's a requirement.
I'm not. Let's talk about how stupid the way they handle things are. That I wouldn't be surprised in the least if these people did not go through background checks.
Well, yeah, it has been bad for a long time. I will say I've seen an improvement, but I also applied for pre-check, so maybe they harass me less now because I paid them $100 to be able to.
Is that all it costs?
I paid them off.
All right, yeah. Nate, what do you have?
Well, speaking of aircraft and firearms, we can talk about how GSA is auctioning off a Black Hawk helicopter for the federal government. So,
grip stop helicopter, do it.
Oh, well, I'd have to sell some grip stops to be able to buy it first, because basically the auction has it up. The high bid is $200,000 for this Black Hawk, and the auction ends on March 4th at 10 a.m. So the Black Hawk has been one of the workhorse helicopters in the American military for, I think, at least the last 10 years. It's a restricted aircraft. Like, they never made it for the commercial market. There's no civilian version of that aircraft available. So here's like a once-in-a-life opportunity for you to go buy an old bird, an actual helicopter that was used by the military. So the question I have to ask is, people want to make a big deal about citizens owning AR-15s, but if I have enough money, I can go buy a military-grade helicopter.
NBD, not a big deal.
Right.
It's like, you can't have that AR-15, but you can have this gunship.
You can buy a tank.
Oh, it's got to come demilled, though. It can't come with any of that.
Yeah, well, that's a good part about it, right? So there's no weapon systems on the Black Hawk anymore, but you can buy your own Black Hawk and then go on some hog hunts.
Put some grip stops on it, and there you go.
So here's the plan. Ready? All right, I got a plan for all of us. What we're going to do is everybody's going to buy their own little Ghost Gunner CNC machine, right? and then we're going to manufacture a whole bunch of 80% lower AR-15s, and then we're going to get in the grip stop helicopter and just go be awesome somewhere. Is that, you guys like that plan?
John,
fly out to our fortress on Murr Island.
John, you're going to bring your Gatling AK, your Gatling gun AKs, and you're going to be the door gunner with that.
No, right? It will already have been pre-buried in that fortress.
Thank you.
So,
see?
yeah.
I think if I was going to create...
Sorry, I've always wanted to play Airwolf, so that sounds great.
Oh, come on!
Airwolf.
I would really, have to go out here, and I say if I'm going to make a Gatling gun, it's not going to be 7.62-39. That's just not how I do things. If I'm going to make a Gatling gun, it's going to be absurd and shoot fire rings and things like that. It's going to be in a 50 cal of sorts. Like, who has a 500 Smith & Wesson Gatling gun? Nobody. I'll take that role. I'll be that guy.
It's going to be your cheetah print Desert Eagles.
Oh, you love that gun, don't you?
Yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah, so for those of you, he's serious. I handled a cheetah print Desert Eagle, and it was as glorious and trashy as you can imagine.
It's about like the stripper, like the Las Vegas Fremont Street stripper of guns.
So imagine a stripper that's been retired for about 20 years, but really is still enthusiastic about it. And these are it's the same pattern of the pants she wears every day.
Oh man.
It was really bad, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad in a good way. All right.
In a glorious way, yeah.
John, I think while you were holding that really glorious Desert Eagle was around the same time that you entrusted me to safeguard your 500 Smith & Wesson ammunition.
Oh, so Nate drew dirty things all over my ammunition while I left it with him.
He's like, do you mind if you watch? Can I leave this with you? I'm gonna go look at obscene Desert Eagles. I'm like, I'll totally watch this box of weird ammunition for you.
So, I was totally unsuspecting too.
So I pull out one of these 500 Smith & Wesson cartridges because they're a very, very large cartridge, and I think to myself, wow, I have a Sharpie, and you can fit a lot of stuff on the side of one of these brass casings.
Hold on, I have it right here. Let me see what I can find.
Oh no, this is not safe for work here. It's like
no, there was a couple that are totally okay. Let's see. This one says the monster that lives under my bed. That's what this one says, and I'll hold it up to the camera for those of you watching. It actually says it on there.
That's fantastic.
That bullet is reserved for the William Dafoe that lives under your bed.
There's boobies. There's boobies. There's a man's private parts.
The truck stop one's my favorite one.
What's this one say? John loves men in a not so clean way. And this is written on the side of my ammo.
How long did you leave that with him for?
About
John
5 minutes.
John loves truck stock bathroom glory holes. There you go. That's the one.
That's my favorite one.
I'm gonna cut it off there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll transition away from this uncomfortable moment. And,
I like it better when you just let it sit.
So shot in the head. A teen calls for help, only not to be taken seriously by the dispatcher.
Can I tell you the worst part about this for me?
Yes.
Have you been there?
It's the grammar. Shot in the head. Teen calls for help, only to not be taken seriously. That it's just incorrect. It should be only not to be taken. I'm just saying. I have a problem with it.
It happened in Sweden. Maybe that's how they do things over there. But so when two teens were shot and stabbed in a small town in Norrhammar, Sweden last October, one of the boys called for help, but instead of promptly sending someone to help, the dispatcher drilled the 16-year-old boy about being shot. She questioned how the teen could call for help if he had been shot in the head. And when the boy finally becomes so frustrated that he calls her a damn idiot, the woman acts offended and asks the teen to behave and not curse her. So, as the boy stays on the phone, the 17-year-old friend lying next to him, he was dead at the time. He asked the dispatcher to tell his mom, grandmother, and entire family that he loves them. After 6 minutes, the call cuts out for an unknown reason. Somehow the teen was able to survive his injuries, which included gunshot wounds to the head, neck, and shoulder, as well as multiple stab wounds.
What?
Little known fact, the operator was actually a former TSA agent. What is that? This is atrocious. This kind of stuff happens way more than I think we all care to admit.
Terrible.
911, they get fake calls all the time. You know what I mean? People prank call it and things of that nature, and it's just.
This was in Sweden, though, right?
Right, but I'm saying it's not localized to America. I mean, they still deal with stupid calls and all that sort of things, and unfortunately.
You mean idiots?
Yeah.
There's idiots in every country.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're to our Patreon segment. And Patreon's an easy way for you to crowdfund This Week in Guns by throwing your support behind every episode, giving as little as $1 per episode. And we have some great companies that have also thrown their support into giving you guys some cool stuff. So we're sending out some random battle boxes here pretty soon, and they will include things like MS Clean kits, which, by the way, there's a new Kickstarter for MS Clean.
Can I talk about that real quick? Real quick, I'm actually helping Peter Palma with the new MS Clean cleaning kit, and a carbon scraping tool that me and Peter designed together is going to be part of that kit for the Kickstarter.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Well,
Cool.
we'll include that link in the show notes as well. And also, Duluth Trading Company is throwing in some gift cards. GunGoddess.com is throwing in gift cards, and Duke Cannon Supply Company is throwing in the ammo boxes you see behind me, full of big-ass bricks of soap. So check it out, patreon.com/week. And also, don't forget, if you want to support the Firearms Radio Network as a whole, go over to patreon.com/FRN to pledge a monthly level of support, not per episode, but per month for the network as a whole. So check those out. And Adam, thank you so much for coming on. Tell us what you're up to in the gun world, and maybe where people can connect with you.
Sure. Well, thank you. First, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. People can find me. I write blog articles for the law firm, so you can check out our blog. The address for that is blog.princelaw.com. There's a number of articles that myself and attorney Joshua Prince post relating to firearms issues. It is our firm's general blog, so you will find some other state-specific issues that may not have to do with firearms, but you can check out all the good stuff there. I also have written some articles for Mr. Chaos over there and intend on continuing to work with him, and you can find some of my other works out there. Breach Bang Clear has been kind enough to publish some of my stuff as well. So,
Very cool. I just put a link in the show notes for the blog. And so, Nathan, where can people connect with you online, and have anything coming up that you want to share?
Well, you guys, a lot of people don't, well, some people do, some people don't know. I'm a contributor for Recoil Magazine, so you can read some of my articles in the latest issue of Recoil. I also contribute to Recoil Web, which is the online side of the house for the magazine. And then obviously I also write quite a bit for Breach Bang Clear and edit Adam's articles for loading. So breachbangclear.com, recoilweb.com, and then Recoil Print, where you can find me there. I also recently teamed up with B5 Systems to relaunch the very popular Grip Stop, which is my invention that goes on rifle forearms. So those will be launching here in about a week and a half. You're going to be seeing Grip Stops pop up just about everywhere. If you want to interact with me directly, honestly, the best thing to do is just to follow Grip Stop on Instagram and shoot me a private message.
Just
Very,
like that.
very
Also,
cool.
if I would really recommend everybody check out the MS Clean Kickstarter, and you can see my contribution to Peter's project. A lot of people, big supporters of MS Clean. It's a magazine-shaped cleaning kit that me and Peter discussed years ago when we were in Iraq together. And after we left the Marines, Pete pursued it and they had it made. And it's a really cool product. Really beneficial to shooters everywhere, not just guys in uniform. And I think the carbon scraping tool that I came up with Pete and is really going to complement the new MS Clean. So if you get a chance, go to Kickstarter and check that out.
Yeah, I actually I pledged some support to that. I think what's been really cool with that particular thing, and you know the regular viewers out there and listeners will know Peter comes on the show all the time, so we definitely support him here. But the entire industry just kind of got behind that, and it's really cool to see. And I think a lot of people believe in the product, so I know they're going to be successful. It's really cool.
But I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. I had a great time.
Yeah, very cool. I put the link to the MS Clean double Kickstarter that's going on right now, and I believe we have an interview with Pete coming up here on Gun Guy Radio. Either this Sunday or next Sunday that releases, so you guys can check that out as well. Well, Natalie Foster, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people connect with you, and what's going on?
Sorry, I'm just in the middle of checking out. I'm basically stalking Nate on Grip Stop on Instagram. And I gotta say, this is a pretty rad Instagram page. I was at the cry party too, man. Anyway. So, sorry we didn't get to connect. Anyway, yeah, you can find me at girlsguidetoguns.com. And I'm active on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I promise I'll get back to my blog, someday too. And yeah, I don't know, I'm really excited this week because I'm going to be doing the Benelli Ethos Around America project. So I'm expecting to get that Benelli Ethos coming in to me here while I'm in New Mexico. I'm going to be out there shooting. If anybody's in Albuquerque, hit me up. That would be fun to go shoot. And then yeah. Oh, right now, too, we've got the latest episode of Love at First Shot on nrawomen.tv. That is up as well, and I'm going on my first hunting adventure. So you can see all of the hilarity that ensues. So, yeah, that's what's going on with me.
Awesome. Very cool. John, I'm with Chaos YouTube channel. Where can people find you, and what's new?
So guess what? You can now go to imwithchaos.com.
Yay!
You can find everything. You can find articles by Adam. You can find articles by me. All the videos are posted there, and big things are in the works. I've got a lot of cool stuff coming. We're wrapping up reviews left and right, filming stuff, all over the place. My media company is growing, and all kinds of cool stuff, man. I'm really excited. So if you guys want to check it out, imwithchaos.com. You can also find me all over social media, Chaos311 Clarity, Instagram, Facebook, you know the drill. Yeah, rock and roll.
I'm still kicking myself for not buying that domain.
Yep, see, you should have done it. I've actually owned it for a few years now. Just never did anything with it. But yeah, this year is going to be really cool, man. And I think everybody here on the panel is doing some really cool stuff, and I'm excited for all of my friends to kind of be successful and grow this year. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Very cool. I have all the links in the show notes, which will be at thisweekinguns.com/106, where you can also comment on the bottom of the show notes, and you can also comment on the bottom of this YouTube video. Please leave us an iTunes review over there. It helps the show. And don't forget, you can contribute simply by shopping Brownells or Amazon using our affiliate links, which you can find at thisweekinguns.com. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Adam.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nathan.
I appreciate your time. I had a great time. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. It's been our pleasure. Thank you, John.
Hey, Jake. Thank you so much, buddy. Always fun, man.
And thank you so much, Natalie.
Always a good time, Jake. Thanks for doing this.
We'll see you next week.